Guys, welcome to today's video where we're gonna upgrade the onboard air setup. This is my setup so far. I open up the hood, I hit the compressor, and then I plug in the Morphlate system to air up my tires. What we're gonna do today is get rid of the middleman of having to open the hood by relocating the air chuck somewhere in the front bumper area. And we're gonna do so using this air manifold kit from ARB. Of course, we also have some airline to extend out that air chuck relocation, some extra NPT elbow fittings to make sure that we can get a secure connection. And to start out, we're gonna get the ARB provided 1/4" NPT fitting into the top of the compressor. And to make sure we don't have any leaks, I'm using Teflon tape and wrapping it in the opposite direction to what tightening would be, so that it kind of wraps in on itself instead of getting bunched up if you do it the opposite way. And then you just kind of tighten it down with a 14mm wrench. And of course, there's no need to go too tight, just nice and snug should do it just fine. Now we have this extended stainless braided line that ARB supplies with the manifold kit that enables you to mount the manifold anywhere around the arc that you can kind of see here. And then of course I'm putting Teflon tape on the top of the fitting so that I can get an airtight seal here. And I'm just leaving this loose for now so that I can have freedom of movement and get an idea of where I want to mount the air manifold. Now, I tried getting clever here and thought I could just take maybe one of the bolts out of the compressor and sandwich the air manifold in between there and not have to, either find or buy a new bracket. But it did not end up working out, unfortunately, so I had to get creative. And of course, I found some extra space back here on the Rego fabrication mount that was not being used. So I went for that, and what better place to mount it than somewhere totally kind of hidden from the front view of the hood, but that also had some space for me to mount it up and also had room to run any wires or air lines needed for my setup. So I went ahead and reinstalled the mounting bolt in the bottom of the compressor that did not end up working out. And then I started mocking up my setup by running the airline through where I thought it should go, and then connecting it up loosely with the air manifold, as you can see here. And it looks a little messy with the air compressor wiring, but as you'll see when we have it fully mounted up, it actually looks pretty clean. And I'm not exactly sure where I want to mount this chuck in its final location. We'll figure that out when we get there, but for now I'm just trying to get the manifold mounting position ready to go. So we have the airline coming from the compressor to the manifold, so that's like the feed line. And then we have the other line that's going to go out to the air chuck. And then those two bolts right there plug the holes for air locker solenoids, which may be coming soon in the future as this build continues to spiral way over budget. So next up, I need to clock the air manifold where everything needs to point in order to fit in that extremely tight space. This is not a static piece. You can actually adjust it anywhere as needed with the fittings and the air locker solenoids and the mounting brackets. There's a male fitting on this side and a female fitting on the other side. So that's pretty much it. It's a really simple device, and they just go inside of the center cylinder there. So now I'm just getting an idea of where I want to mount it, making sure I have enough room for future wiring and future airlines. So for now, we have the feed line that has enough room and it's in there, clears the hood strut, and we have the air locker solenoids that have plenty of room to stick up as much as they need to. So I think we're pretty close to the clocking position that I want. So what I'm gonna do is tighten everything down, put the brackets in their place, and make some drill markings, which is what I'm doing here. And then it's time to drill out the holes. And of course, I don't want a bunch of metal shavings in my engine bay, so vacuuming is always a good idea. Now it's time to stick my arm way under this mount and get those screws and bolts into the base to secure the air manifold, and that thing is not going anywhere. Really happy with how this turned out. It looks like it's going to be a solid airtight setup with plenty of room for all the lines and electronic connections needed. Now I'm just going to go around and make sure every single fitting is secure, because if any of these airlines leak, if you ever get air lockers in the future, those lockers will not work, even if it's just the air feed line. Remember, this is an air manifold, so it connects up to your air chuck for airing up and all that other stuff as well. So if there's any leaks in the lines, they will not work and you'll be stuck without lockers. And if you're on a hard trail, man, you're really gonna want those. So here's the air chuck fitting that we're relocating. For now, I'm having it dangle underneath the front bumper here, just until I can get an idea of how I want it. All right, let's key on and check for air leaks. Definitely one solenoid. Right here. So as you can hear, the compressor didn't shut off when it sensed that there was an air leak, so I went ahead and tightened that up and kept going. That shouldn't go anywhere now. Let's check it out. And we are airtight. Now we'll be able to just grab this guy and air up from here and then put it back up. Still holding air. No leaks. Locker solenoids gonna go right here. One thing the air manifold is supposed to help with is providing smoother air for air tools and of course like air hoses like this one. Right. So I'm just trying that out now. All right, that's all the air that the manifold holds. All right, holding air. So now what I noticed is that the compressor will stay on longer before it stops, but that's because it has to fill the air volume of the air manifold. But now, much more consistent airflow. That manifold is awesome. So after I air up, what I'm gonna do, or if I'm done using the air hose here, what I'll do is switch off the compressor so it doesn't fill back up with air when I try to unhook this, because that can give you problems. Evacuate the system and just unhook her. And then this should retract up here. I'm gonna find a way to do that. All right, slight change. I ran the airline down and around here. Got some nice zip ties holding it in, going underneath, and we come down right there, and it just gets zip tied here. And for now, I'm just gonna run it into my little winch protector and just flop it out when I need it. I want to figure out some sort of bracket solution where I could just leave it hard mounted like this or something. I don't know. Let me know if you guys have any ideas. Air locker solenoid wiring is very simple when you have a switch panel. Instead of using that harness up at the top of the picture here, you don't really need that at all. So you already have power and ground for the air setup, right? And for the air locker solenoids, they're just grounded into that main ground, so you don't really need to worry about that. All you need to do is give them 12-volt signal to that yellow and dark green wire coming out of the air locker solenoid connectors, and just put those into whatever positive port you want to go with. So at the far right, I have some open ports, and I could just put those positive wires directly in the positive side of the control box in the aux beam switch panel, and it'll basically just connect up there, and I press a switch inside the cabin and I have air locker power. and that's all it takes. Those solenoids are pretty simple devices. As soon as they receive 12-volt power, they're just going to let air from the compressor and by extension the manifold that we just installed to flow into the lockers and lock those axles together.
So then for each respective one, I forget which one's which. Maybe I'll put it on screen. Green is which one and yellow is the other one, and they both just have ground. Since we're not using the rocker switches or whatever, all we need to do is give 12-volt signal. So we'll just clip these and shove them into the positive on one of these switch things, give it the right amount of fuse, and then the locker solenoid will receive power from the switch inside. So power goes to the locker solenoid, which opens. Presumably your compressor will be engaged at that point, and that will, fill the manifold with air. The locker solenoid will have an air line coming out of it, going to locker 1, locker 2, and then you'll have air locking goodness. So really excited about this, guys. It is happening soon. All these do is plug straight into the locker solenoids. Wiring couldn't be simpler with this aux beam panel. I'm so glad it's not going to be a hassle, because shops charge extra for wiring and stuff, and with the amount of money you're spending, you really want to find ways to save money.
So guys, let me know what you think of my onboard air setup so far. If you have any ideas for me, just let me know in the comments. Go ahead and like the video, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and get ready for lockers. We'll see you in the next video.